Hello and welcome to the Emma Childers podcast, Embracing the Dash, a collection of stories, art, and encouragement, and creative ways for embracing the dash. Thanks for tuning in. Let's embrace the dash.
So several months ago, I was doing my job. I work at a nonprofit and I take pictures on the weekends, and I was doing my job, and this sweet lady came up to me and said, I think I have a project that, it'd be cool if we worked on together. And I was like, okay. I was in a season, what she didn't know was that I was in a season that I really felt like God was calling me to just start saying yes to things, to not be timid, to not be nervous, but to step in boldness and say yes when opportunities and things came across my desk. And so God had definitely prepared my heart for this moment, because I was like, we have never spoken to each other before. Now, she was always wonderful and sweet and kind, always offered a sweet smile at Bible study or wherever we were. She has always been just the radiant personality that you've seen on this podcast. And so Emma approached me and asked me, was like, I think I might have a project that we could work on together. And I was like, okay, I don't know who this person is, but you know what, Lord, you told me to say yes in the season, so I'm gonna say yes, and we'll see what happens. And she didn't pressure me at all. So one thing about me, I'm a single mother, and so and that has its own story and journey, but saying yes to things is a challenge for me, because I don't have a lot of spare time. A lot of spare time or no spare time, whatever, really either one could be said. But I really don't have very much spare time. And so saying yes to things was something that God had to push me towards, because it was not, all I could see was all the hurdles and all the obstacles to getting things done. And all I could see was right in front of me, and as barriers. That's all I could see was barriers. Well, Emma didn't put any pressure on me, and it took us a little bit of time, not a whole lot of time, but a couple weeks before we connected. And I don't think that was because of her. I think it just took me a minute to give her a call, because I was nervous. What is this thing that this lady who I do not know has in mind for me to work on? Who's always been a kind spirit. She's been kind each week when I see her, and I'm like, hey, I know I owe you a phone call. Been very sweet. That was very sweet the entire process. Very gracious. And finally I connected with her. I was like, hey, I don't know if you found somebody else to do this. And she's like, no, I was waiting to hear from you. And I was like, okay. I don't know why, but all right. Yes, Lord. Yes. And so as she started describing to me the Emma Childers podcast, which really was initially about a book, not about a book, the book that she's working on right now, that's going to be released any day. It might be released by the time y'all hear this, but that's going to be released very soon. She talked to me about it, and it was the way she was talking to me about the book definitely intrigued me. And I was like, I don't know when I'm going to find time to read this book, because I can barely read the basic things that I need, like talking to Jesus, reading the parenting help books, reading the self-help books, because I was trying to do better with my life. Really all those things. The parenting books, the self-help books, the how to do this thing next books, the entrepreneurship books, because I also freelance and do my own work. I get to manage social media for my primary for my job, but I also do it for a couple other organizations and things like that. So it's And I do some website, but I do a lot of different things. That's not the point in this. But the point is, I was like, okay, I need to get this let me say yes and let me finish something. One of my mentors at the time, my main mentor at the time, basically kind of called me out on the fact that I really had all these dreams, but I wasn't really willing to do what it took to get there. And she said that very differently, but very graciously. Very differently and very graciously, but that was true. And so really talking to Emma was the first step, was to get this thing done, to at least close the loop, to know for sure that she no longer needed me, because that's what I really thought she was going to say. That she no longer needed me, because plenty of people are doing these types of things these days. In my perspective, that's where I was coming from. Well, Emma, she said, no, I was waiting to hear from you. And I was like, okay. All right. Well, I don't know why, but sure, I'll meet with you and we'll figure this thing out. So we met at the scene that you usually see in the backdrop of her videos on the House on Union. And she was more open than I could have possibly anticipated to just talking, to hearing me out, to hearing my experiences, and the things she had to say about the book that she wanted to publish. I was like, wow. And her stories about her and Jack, just all of it together. I was like, Lord, I don't know what you're doing or why you would do this, but I'm here for it. That was all I could say. Well, I'm here for it. And so Emma and I started meeting, and I asked her, I was like, well, what do you see beyond? Because, once the book is done, if we can't, first of all, we're not going to read the book on the podcast, because people need to read the book because it's a good book. And also there's illustrations and things. If you haven't looked at it yet, go to her website, emmalchilders.com. Check out all the things that she does. She does a servant leadership class that's pretty dynamic. That's how I first actually heard of Emma Childers, was because so in the nonprofit that I work for, it's a church, and the church, we have Bible studies on Wednesdays, and if you go to a church, some of those traditional things that you see, Bible study on Wednesdays, Sunday services, Saturday services, all those things. So Emma, it was Wednesday night Bible study that I first kind of started seeing her and getting to know her a little bit, because I would run in to do a quick social media B-roll gathering or whatever else, whatever I was doing at the time. Maybe it was pictures, something. I'd run in, go get what I needed, and then I'd run right back out. And Emma always offered a smile, or she ignored me in a way that I needed her to ignore me at the time, which felt just as much as a hug to me. And that's how I first got to know her. And I would go into her classroom and I would hear excerpts, was all I would get, since I was running around trying to do some things for work. But I would get little excerpts. And it didn't feel like a class that I could just grab excerpts from at all. It seemed like a class that I wanted to sit down in, which at the time I wasn't able to yet. So, but I was intrigued by this concept of servant leadership. I grew up in church, and so I am accustomed to hearing the term servant leadership, but all the resources are scattered for it. And when I've taken some classes on servant leadership and things like that, it's they're pulling from different places. Emma's class really consolidates that and gives you some practical applications from what I saw. And that was just from excerpts. Quick running in, running out. So all that said, what I saw was this sweet lady who had a lot going on somehow, that wanted to meet with me about a podcast, about a book. And I asked her, I was like, so what do you see happening beyond this book? Because she already had another book out, and this one's getting ready to be released. She had the Servant Leadership book out, and she's about to release this next one. And I understood why the podcast was a necessary step, especially with how, technology and everything else is going today. But I also was like, so what happens next after this book is released? And that's when collaboratively Emma came up with Embracing the Dash, which was something that God was already putting on her heart, which is how the podcast got titled, as the Emma Childers Podcast, Embracing the Dash. She was diligently following what the Lord was telling her to do for each step. Even if it meant working with a single mom who had a lot of obstacles to overcome. And I only have one day a week that I'm actually available to work with her on it. Our first couple meetings, once we established that I was going to be doing the recording her podcast, I was like, we got to start pushing record. We can't wait for everything to be perfect. We need to start pushing record, because I was listening to the content of the conversations we were having. I was like, because we can't duplicate this. This is authenticity. We can't duplicate this. Like, this is you. Let's do this. So we started pushing record. And so that's where episode 1, 2, 3, all those episodes kind of came from. Because we realized that we just, conversation is how it happens, which is why you can also hear my voice a little bit in some of them. Because I was so moved by many of the things that Emma had to say that surprised me. So again, I'm a single mother, and I'm a single mother from a divorce. And Emma, the way that she reached out to me, but it helped me realize that what I had to say was valuable. And that was something I did not experience in my marriage. And it's something that has been hard for me to rewrite. Part of what led to the end of my marriage was when I started stepping into things that I've been purposed to do, that God's given me a gifting for. And that was challenging, that put a strain on my marriage in a way that it really shouldn't have, I realize now. Hearing Emma talk about Jack showed me, and the stories of all the things that Emma has done in her life, all the things that she's overcome. And she probably wouldn't even think of it as overcoming. I don't know if she would, because I'm using that word, not her. But the things that she never let stop her helped me realize that there's no excuse. There's no excuse. So hearing Emma talk about Jack, I was like, we need to hear more about y'all. And Emma was willing to share that story. Even though that was not originally what she asked me to do, what she thought she was coming to me for. But she was willing to share that story to give us a place to start. And sharing really why this book was necessary for her and Jack, her relationship with Jack, to kind of close the loop on the things that they had started together. The way I put it was that in many ways this book is their, the fruit of their, not the whole fruit because it's much more dynamic than that, but this book, this podcast, all of it is really the fruit of their marriage, which I personally find very beautiful. So yes, I answered the challenge, not the challenge, but I answered the call that Emma brought to my attention to start working on this podcast and just start pushing record. Did lots of research, lots of things. And I really, I've also, I'm working on a couple other podcasts and things like that. So all those things together, but Emma was the one who had the drive to get it done. And to work with me, to build into me. So as we've been talking about these stories and as we've been working on this project together, there's been definite ways that, Emma has been so gracious, but I know for sure I've let her down. Just because seasons of life get busy, and I do have seasons that are challenging, And I wasn't very good at talking about that, and being honest about my realities, because I was so scared. This sounds so foolish now, but I was so scared of being rejected because I'm a single mother who has to make some things work sometimes, and whose schedule is not simple, who's very regimented, also very organized, and very particular about my children. I have the irrational desire and expectation, to be honest, that my children would grow up while their father is not present at all, for their safety. My children would grow up without even feeling the significant impact of not having a father in the home. And while Emma has been encouraging and reminding me that life is not over, she also help me feel okay with the decisions I was making, because I was making decisions and just not telling anybody about it. I had decided that I wasn't going to date, and I was doing that in action. I had tried dating and all that other stuff, but I just realized that it wasn't worth the risk for me, for my children, who are not big enough yet to, they're big enough to speak up for themselves. They speak up for themselves all the time, but they're not big enough yet to handle if mama is dating someone and it doesn't work out. That's too much. And they're not big enough to stay at home by themselves, and I'm not going to pay for a sitter just to get to know somebody that I don't know if it's going to work out. So that's a standard I have, is that if you want part of my time and this is not benefiting me entrepreneurially, then you got to cover the sitter. So, but I made up my mind though. That was initially the standard. Now my standard is, I'm sorry, I'm just not dating right now. And I'm comfortable with that. I love that about me right now. And Emma, in her stories, y'all gotta listen to the stories. Help me realize that that's okay. That God provides my needs. That God gives me the answers. That the pieces of the puzzle will come together in due time. And to ask for help when I need it. So, for example, there was one time that I was like, I can't meet with her. I couldn't meet with Emma. And I was like, I know I just can't meet with her because I can't make it over there. And so I was like, how am I going to make this work? And it was right before we were supposed to release. And Emma was like, Karis, I can come to you. Why didn't you just say something? I can come to you. And I was like, okay, I can try to just say something. That seems reasonable and logical. I still didn't believe it, y'all. She told me I could just say something. And there were a couple other times for sure that Emma was like, just communicate with me. And it's such a simple message. But it required a lot of trust. And I have been hurt before, that I had shared with somebody what my reality was, and that became something that was shared with other people. And it became shared with other people in a way, not that, and I'm sure that I can't measure anyone else's intentions. That's not my job. But, and maybe the people did not, in times that this has happened, it's likely that they did not mean any harm. Maybe they were trying to help people understand, have a little empathy. But it ended up coming back around to me as if I was doing something wrong for my realities. And Emma helped heal that in me a lot. That speaking up is not a weakness. If anything, it's a strength. is what she's taught me in action, is that if anything, it's a strength to speak up, and to ask questions. Ooh, that asking questions things, man. Learning how to ask questions with boldness and wisdom. Images taught me a lot in the process of all. I keep saying all these images taught me a lot. What it is that my notes do not seem sufficient for this at all. Like, it, just the reality is that this has been an ongoing, deeply enriching experience. Anyone who gets to listen to Emma's beauty of storytelling, you can see it. And you may not get what I got from the stories. You might get a different takeaway. But what I saw, what I see, is a woman who deeply loved her husband. Deeply loved her husband. And deeply loves God. I really should reverse the order because it's very, extremely apparent how much she loves God. And has a lot of wisdom and experience. She knows how to offer grace. Grace upon grace, which is what I need. So it's been an honor. It truly has been an honor to be able to work with Emma, record with Emma, hear her stories, glean from her wisdom, and hear from somebody who doesn't want anything from me, really. I mean, we're doing this podcast, sure. She wants me to help her with this. But I don't know. I feel like I get more out of it than she does. All I do is show up to record and ask her a question when one comes to mind, or if I realize the direction we need to go. I do those types of things. But Emma's the GOAT. In many ways, one of the greatest of all times. But quietly and humbly. And these books that she's working on, both great. Not working on. One's completed. The one that she's is completed also, but is going to be released soon. Oh, y'all are in for a treat. Don't miss out on this. That's what I would say for anybody who's just tuning in and listening to this random chick talk. Don't miss out on this. It may make you feel a little uncomfortable because especially the book that's about to come out. It may make you feel a little uncomfortable and make you question a lot of things, but or make you want to look at it from a different perspective. But don't shy away. Enjoy the journey. Tune into the podcast because embracing the dash is so much more. Emma has helped me want to see the moments in my dash a little more clearly. And that's all been through. Just, it's been an enrichingly beautiful experience. The way that God's used her. And I know it's not done yet. Like, God is just scratching the surface on how Emma's stories are going to be used. Because, the internet lives forever. So, but I'm excited and grateful to be part of this project. It's changed my life in a lot of ways. It's given me confidence. It's reminded me that it's okay to be who I am. To be entirely who I am, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm thoroughly loved by my Lord and Savior. That God even put me and Emma, we are not demographically the same at all. I don't know because even in terms of backgrounds and working, we both come from big families of origin. But That's probably the only thing we have in common. One of the few things. But Emma has, like, just the way, even in terms of when we don't understand each other fully, like, seeing the way that Emma has kind of just trusted God with the process. The way that she trusts God with the process, and taught me to speak up, taught me to be honest, and taught me to be gracious to myself when I make mistakes. Or not, because not always a mistake per se, but when I realize that something's going to be more challenging than I thought. But just to be gracious with myself, with others. I've gotten applied to my children too, to slow down, to be organized, to be procedured. My aunt has also really built into that too, but Emma really has helped me slow down. Because she never asked me, like, it's never like straight to business. Now, I get straight to business sometimes, but she does not get straight to business. She asks me how I'm doing every single time and actually listens to the answer. Who does that? To these days, who does that? Actually listens to the answer, and usually after she listens to the answer and responds, that's when we start pushing record because she has such rich, enriching golden nuggets from all that. But she actually cares about how I'm doing, and even the things that she doesn't understand about my life, she takes the time to be gracious towards and loving towards still. There was another time that we met at a playground because it was the reality of my situation that day. And so, and Emma, she came out with her hat and we got work done. And my children played and we got done what we needed to get done. It's just, there's so many different ways, and I could keep going on. Part of it is that I don't want to leave out any examples of the ways that this journey has been, has taught me to embrace my dash. Because I mean, I'm young-ish, sort of. By most standards, I'm young. And I'm in my 30s, and in my early 30s, and well, early-ish 30. Anyway, I'm in my 30s, and I still have lots of dash to embrace. My life is not over. And it's all very possible. It's just a matter of getting out there and pulling down the shrubs when I need to and maximizing the moment. And Emma has no idea. I don't know if she has any idea, but she's also inspired me to get my kids more involved in our gardening and our housekeeping and all the things that go into life. Just help me get involved and get them involved in the process of, so not everything's on me. So I have energy to record this video right now, or this podcast episode right now. I have energy to get other things done because my kids are stepping in and getting things done for me. And Emma didn't do that. And I don't remember if she directly suggested it or not. I think she might have, but she also gave me practical tools. It wasn't like she just suggested something and then was like, all right, good luck. She also gave me practical tools from whether it was a toy chest or coloring books. Oh my goodness, my kids have been tearing up those. I mean, not tearing them up. They're not tearing them up. Emma, don't worry. They're not tearing them up. They are using them very beautifully. And even like my son, because one of them is like an activity book about math and stuff. My son is all into it, which is, math has been, oh my goodness, a struggle. But, and even like, some of, being goal oriented and okay, well, how far can I get in this by myself? Now, okay, I've reached my barrier. Now it's time to do something different. All that said, Emma's really helped me learn how to embrace my dash, and I'm dramatically grateful. I'm saying a lot of things that may sound a little disjointed, but I'm just dramatically grateful for my time getting to work with Emma. All the things that God has been birthing out of this process of embracing the dash.
Thanks for tuning in. Let's embrace the dash.